Hey guys, welcome back to We Watch Movie. I'm Mike.
I'm Jay.
And this is another Patreon request. And John Murphy, you sexy sumbitch, you picked one of my favorite movies of all time. Top 10 first year SLC Punk.
Fuck yeah!
Who cares who started it? Oh, I spit. Did you see that?
That's actually Matthew Lillard all the way. Just fucking swallow your spit, man. I mean, you fucking poser. Taking place in the good old 1985.
And this is a first time watch for you, ain't it?
No, I'd seen it before a long ass time ago, but I forgot all about it. But yeah, it was so long ago I barely remember it. So yeah, I had no clue walking in how cool of a fucking movie this was. Especially, you can draw parallels when he talks about, at one point in the movie, when he does say, you know, there's always this this argument with punks, like, who started the punk movement? The Ramones, or was it the Sex Pistols? It's like, who cares who started it? I feel like we're talking about DC versus Marvel.
We did what we could to fuck things up, but the system is strong, and there were many, and we were still few.
Matthew Lillard's best performance, in my opinion. I think that at the end of this movie, for what happened, the end scene alone, man, he should have won a fucking Oscar for this. But, you know, movies like this, they don't get the credit it deserves. It's one of the best independent films of all time, in my opinion. It's one of the best movies about punk, in my opinion. It's just one of the best movies ever, in my opinion. And Jonathan Murphy, we thank you for picking an awesome fucking movie.
It's a great selection, yeah.
And by the way, guys, we do have a tier on Patreon where we pick from the people in the top tier, and we do review requests for you or a commentary request for you, whatever you want. So the link for the Patreon's down below if you guys want to check that out. But getting the SLC Punk, the movie starts off, and you've got them getting out of a truck and beating the shit out of a bunch of rednecks, because the punks hate the rednecks, and they also hate the mods. There's the mods, there's the punks, there's the rednecks, there's the skinheads.
There's the metalheads.
And they're all in this tiny little crazy God's country, Salt Lake City, where everybody's like, you boys are fucking weird.
What the hell are you?
It's like, it's fucking crazy how relatable and relevant this movie still is. Matthew Lillard does a great job. He's got a lot of energy. He's highly, like, infectious with his humor and the way that he's handling the character that he's playing, Steve-O. And through you know, his adventures, talking about how he feels depressed and he's in this shitty town and he still loves fucking music like that, you kind of relate to that, because Mike and I come from a very fucking small town in Kentucky, and we gel our goddamn hair, and I look like I'm dressed like the fucking guy from Homeward Bound at the very end of the movie when he's like, Shadow, and you immediately hate it when you walk into a redneck bar. They're like, them boys right there, them queer as fuck right there.
Yeah.
Either I will kill them or fuck them, and I don't know which one's which.
If you're guys like us and you've ever walked into an Applebee's in small town in Kentucky, then you know exactly where they're coming from in this fucking movie.
There is a curse on the land. The end is at hand.
That's so true.
Excuse me, ma'am, but, you know, there have been, like, floods and earthquakes since the beginning of time, dude.
That is so. But never have so many of Satan's followers been amassed on the earth as there are now.
You know, movies like Scott Pilgrim Saves the World, where they have like those crazy opening credits, or like Can't Hardly Wait, where they give people bios and stuff like that. This movie does it, but it does it throughout the entire movie. So you're like halfway through the movie, and then Matthew Lillard, who breaks the fourth wall a lot, which I love in this movie, pops up and he's like, let me tell you about Bob, or let me tell you about Mike, or let me tell you about this guy, and then you get a cool scene with their story. A low-key coming-of-age story, too. It won't get credit for that, but the transgressions that Matthew Lillard's character goes through from the beginning of the movie, where he's like hardcore punk, and he's like, we're gonna fucking fuck the system up, to the very end where his character ends up being, it's a coming of age story, and for me it's one of the best of all time.
Jason Segel was in this movie, and he dresses like a nerd, and you would never think that he would belong to a punk group like that, but I guess that makes him punk, because he's like, he's the most extreme guy ever.
I'll be right back. This is great. It's my favorite part. Is it right, mate? Fuck off!
He's pretty funny too, because he's always like, you know, look, let's just preach the word. Let's not be violent. Like, you know, understand their differences. But then all of a sudden he'll be like, somebody will bump into him at a party, he's like, fucking bitch, and like throw their head into a goddamn wall. But I really did like that fucking crazy Mark motherfucker. I thought he was, especially when he got mad, and there was some, like when he was showing, like, you know, Steve-O or Matthew Lillard is explaining that Mark is one of those guys that he's always got the hookup. He's got weed and acid all the time on him, so he's able to provide for their parties, but he's weird as shit. And you got to go to his house, and he's rich. And you got to deal with him talking about all the cool things that he bought. He's like, do you know what this is? This is a movie. There's a movie inside of these.
He's got a laser thing. He's like, there's a movie in there.
There's a movie. It's not, and you know what? I buy CD anyway. I don't buy records. The records sound like crap.
Then he's in the shower and he's like, it has 7 different settings, all of which I would gladly show you now.
He's like, is there more? He's like, oh, there's so much more. And then there is that paranoia that sets in because Mark is like, somebody stole my other bag of weed, and he takes a fucking gun out and accuses Heroin Bob and shoots
I killed
2
the man
holes.
once, you know.
Yeah, he's like, you don't believe it? Wait.
You wanna be a cowboy? I show you cowboy. Come on.
And then after a minute, he calms down. He's like, okay, you didn't steal. He's like, goes, who wants to go steal a car? Yes?
Did you know that dolphins are man evolved? Did you know that? I saw once a half dolphin, half man in Greece.
Then Matthew Lillard's like, Mark wanted to drive the car into the Salt Lake to get rid of the evidence or whatever. And he's like, why won't it sink? Sink, you fool!
Sink. Sink, you fool! Hey, why won't she sink?
Well, it's because it's the Great Salt Lake.
And?
It makes things buoyant.
The sink, you fool! And he starts shooting it. But I feel like that rage that Mark had in that one moment is the same way that a lot of people have with their PS4s or their Xbox Ones when they're trying to get the controller to connect.
You gotta be kidding me.
No.
Sink, you fool! You fucking stupid bastard lake! Sink! What are you trying to do to me, huh?
He's got a great line in there too, or a great monologue when he's talking about his family, and he's like, you know, my family died in a plane crash. He's like, yeah, I know, man. He's like, do you know?
My family was all around me in pieces. I saw my mother's arm, my sister's leg, my brother's head.
I couldn't find my father. He's like, but I wanted to though, because I wanted to kick the shit out of him from lying to me.
Well,
like, dude, he might be, as much as I love Matthew Lillard and Heroin Bob and Devin Sawa's character in this movie, I think Mark might be my favorite character of the entire movie.
Mark is really great, and you know, it's unfortunate you don't get to see him very much because that was the last we ever heard of him. He went to Miami and
Till
never came back.
Schweiger is his name.
But yeah, it was cool, man. Like, I don't know, like everything about like each character you really like. Heroin Bob was a really interesting character. I did like.
Awesome.
He reminded me of like a young Robert De Niro for some reason. Like,
you know, it's because he looked like Taxi Driver.
Yeah, like exactly like Taxi Driver.
He'd say,
You know that shit you guys do? You're fucking yourselves up, man. Fucking acid. Acid. It never leaves your body. It's in your fucking spinal cord forever. Let me tell you something about the nature of chemicals, man. You know that dude, Napoleon? He was banished to an island when the French got sick of him. That's right. He supposedly died of stomach problems, right? Wrong. He was actually poisoned over a long period of time. Murdered by arsenic.
I mean, I was down for it, and like. And then I don't know, like he goes from like hardcore, like I hate everything, and then he like falls in love, and then this whole kind of like dystopian thing happens between him and Matthew Lillard, because Matthew Lillard's like, only posers fall in love. God, don't you know?
I feel like if you and I, like we've talked about this before, like because of different places our lives went, we never actually lived together. But I feel like if you and I actually lived together, our house would have looked like that, and we would have been sitting around in our long johns.
Oh yeah, we had like
pouring beer down our face.
We would like spray paint Reagan on the fucking
That's
wall.
one of my favorite scenes is they're just sitting there in their long johns, and he's like pouring beer down his shirt, and he's like, we decided the only way to fight the system was to waste our educated minds.
Bob and the rest of us had made an oath to do absolutely nothing. We were gonna waste our educated minds. We had no other way of fighting. As I said, there just weren't enough of us.
I love when he hates mirrors, so he busts his fucking head on the mirror, and they take him to the doctor, and the doctor's like, well, that's the most effective thing I've ever seen.
He's like, I really hate doctors, man. I hate doctors. He gets serious. I hate them.
Like, that lady hates me, man. Devin Sawa has an awesome character in this movie too.
He got hit with 100, like what was it, 100 laces or
I don't know, 100 hits of acid.
100 hits of acid, and it fucked him up. And then they show a scene of him going over to Sean's house.
What are you doing outside, man?
Are you him?
Yeah, I'm him.
Jesus! Have I sinned or am I going to heaven?
You're frying, man. How much acid did you take?
Hey, you're not Jesus. You're Bob.
I'm Bob. How goes it?
He walks into a ladies' department store, that woman's sitting there, and he stops and he goes, hey!
That feels like somebody at my work when you're on the phone, like, hey, serve me.
Hey!
I gotta go. Can I help you?
Yeah. I called about the job.
His parents, though, his parents were great too. Christopher McDonald plays his dad, and he's sitting there, and they're trying to talk to him and trying to get him to go to Harvard Law School because he comes from money. And he's like, son, just, I understand what you're doing here. It's a statement about the American Indians. And he's like, I'm down with it. I'm hip. I'm cool. He was like, but the guys in New York, they're just never going to get it. And there's a great speech where he's like, you know what, Mom and Dad? I'm 18 for the first time. I can say, fuck you.
Oh, Jesus. Darling, we sound like our parents.
Yeah. It's difficult, dear.
When his mom's like, he's just your son, he goes, he's a son of a bitch. He's like, fuck you, dear. But yeah,
it's difficult,
but
dear.
You know, again, the dad was great. You didn't really get to see that much of the mom, but they both are accepting of his weird lifestyle, and they're not like judging him for it. And I think his dad was kind of down for it. So he's like, especially because Matthew Lillard does wind up going to college and gets through pre-law and gets a 4.0 and makes really good grades. But that, you know, so there was this whole connection that, you know, as far as the father knowing, like, hey, you're going to be a great lawyer even though you don't want to be. And that kind of goes towards the end of the movie as it's going.
It's all about this, but for the first time in my life, I'm 18 and I can say, fuck you! Steven, I didn't sell out, son. I bought in. Keep that in mind. That kid is going to make one hell of a lawyer, huh?
Yeah, he takes after his father. He's a son of a bitch.
Fuck you, dear.
He's like, you know, we were going nowhere. Nothing was, when you're in the punk scene, like, you don't really think about the future because you think everything's going to end anyway, so you don't really care about it. But he didn't want to face reality that there's no fucking hope. It kind of is, it's like when you're trying to get that 50 in Halo 3. Like, nothing else fucking matters at that point. You can't see the future except for that. Like, you're only in the moment. But, you know, that is where it begins dramatic. And then it kind of up and downs all the way to the end of the movie, and then finally gets more to a realistic ending for these kind of characters.
And I won't say, let's not say exactly what happens in the movie, because I feel like there's probably a lot of people out there, especially maybe horror fans, who haven't seen this movie. And I implore you guys, it's one of the best movies ever made.
It's not horror. There's no horror in it.
No, not at all. But definitely fucking go watch it. It's not only hilarious, but it actually really is underratedly a really good coming of age story about youth and stuff like that. Because like you said, like at first they're all hardcore about it. You know, they're extremely hardcore.
No, you're not hardcore.
Unless you live hardcore.
Yeah.
Get off your ass. Let's do some math. But you know, that guy's actually in School of Rock. The mod kid who's like, you know, it's not,
he is.
They don't beat me up because I'm gay. They beat me up because they want to fuck me.
That is so punk rock.
But you know, and it does a really great job of showing the kind of the last moments of someone's youth when you realize that you can't live your entire life being like fuck everything and fuck everyone. Well, like it works for a while, but even the most hardcore people run out, and at the end his friends start going different ways and he runs out and he has to face the facts that he's going to have to do something with his life and all that. And what happens at the end is really tragic, and that, seriously man, that moment, like every fucking time I watch the movie, it makes me cry.
Well, I think that at the very last part of this film is the moment where a traumatic thing occurs, and that's your ode to, hey, I gotta stop fucking around and grow the fuck up. Because at some point it's gonna end, and you can't live this lifestyle where there is, like, you know, because they're all about anarchy and all this shit. That's all fine and dandy if you want to go play in a garage band for a little while, but eventually you gotta pay your fucking bills and you gotta grow the fuck up. And I think that's, at that moment he's like, you know, there's one line, and I'm not gonna say what happens, but there's one line where he's like, I'm not ready, or I wasn't ready. And like, I think that resonates with a lot of people, because when something like that would occur, or something like that did occur, it forces you to grow up immediately. Reality slaps you right in the fucking dick hole, and you're like, oh shit, I wasn't ready for this though, and now I see what I gotta do. The movie is a fucking 9.5 for me. I mean, I loved it that fucking much. I can't. I watched it so early on when I was a kid. I don't remember. I think I watched it because I'd seen Matthew Lillard in Scream, and I fucking love Scream, and I went back and watched some of the other Matthew Lillard films, and this was one of them, and I just couldn't really get it, I guess, at the time, or I just didn't really, I don't know. But watching it now, especially, it's like, fuck yeah! Nipple tassels and fucking cock rings.
In the butt!
In your butthole.
Give me the phone, dick!
Oh, shit.
I give it a 10, man. It's in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Comment down below with your all's thoughts. We love your fucking faces. And if you're new to the channel, click that subscribe button. It gets goddamn wham up in you. Oh, yeah, it's got a good
fuck you, Dad! You know who's the best bet ever? It's Simple Plan, and I'm only saying that because I know nobody would agree with it. That's what people's punk rock about, okay?
We watched a movie. We watched a movie. We watched a movie.